It's the Indie Review Show.
Yay!
Oh man, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I just had to reset my router. All kinds of internet things are going down. Anyway, crazy, crazy times. I almost sent you a text and was like, I, I don't know if I can do it or if I might have to be late. But anyway, everything turned back on.
I
So
love it. I'm glad it worked out. Glad you made
yeah,
it.
I'm excited about today's comic because um, I mean, you and I were talking just briefly before, but it's one we've both got into years ago and then forgot about. Not because it isn't good, but just because that just kind of happens. And as I was rereading it, I was like, man, I love this. It's so good. Um, so I'm excited to kind of reintroduce it or introduce it to whoever.
I
But
love it.
yeah,
I'm very
before we do
excited.
that, I am Corey Kerr,
And I'm Joshua Kemble.
and this is the Indie Review Show.
This is the series where we review the best of indie comics and other media like movies, TV, cartoons, books, and did we mention comics? To be honest, all we mention is comics.
I know. Eventually, we're gonna do. I've got a cool video game I'm gonna talk about in the future episode at some point. I just got to figure out how to do it. But the idea is that we're pulling back curtains on our inspiration. Josh and I have both been professional illustrators, cartoonists, animators, graphic designers, and taught at the college level for quite a few years at this point in time. And we are getting into the things that inspire us. Yeah. But before we do that, let's do some plugs.
Yeah. Why
So,
don't
Josh,
you?
where can people find your stuff?
So if you guys want, you can check out two stories. Book one on Amazon.com right now. What's cool is there's like some kind of ridiculous sale going on where it's like 83% off. I mean, it's like a little over $3 right now on Amazon. I have no idea why that's happening. Because it's not like it's like a discount because of over sales or anything like that. It seems like it's like Amazon gaming the algorithm a little bit, which they sometimes do with specific books. So, hey, I'll take advantage of that and let you guys take advantage of that. So go get my graphic novel. It's 120 pages of autobio about faith and mental illness. It's black and white, hand lettered, hand inked, and it can be handed to you for like under the cost of a cup of coffee right now. And so if I were you guys and you've been on the fence about it and you've wanted to pick up two stories, it's a good time to do it. It's a good book, and it actually helps me. It helps the ranking too. And honestly, for like $3 and free shipping if you have Prime, it's a pretty good deal. So yeah. What about you, Corey? Where can everybody find your stuff?
You can find my stuff. Do you want to switch over?
Yes.
You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. And I've got all kinds of different things going on there, including animations and illustrations and ink drawings and colored digital drawings and all kinds of things like that. My daughter asked me today, hey, in all of your videos, you tell everybody to go to your website. Does anybody ever go to your website? And I said, yeah, they do. So anyway, so if you want to show my daughter that actually does something, then you can go to CoreyKerr.com and check out. If you click on like what's new, that'll bring you to like the newer stuff. But yeah.
I love that. And I still love that it's what's new, because every time you say that, because I'm ridiculous, I think the song by Tom Jones, What's New Pussycat, every time that plays in my head when you say click on what's new.
I should just sing that every time as my intro. That's what I should really do.
All right, well, what are we looking at today, Corey? What is this book?
Okay, so we are looking at Rob Guillory and John Layman's Chew, which is just a really fun comic. And I want to specifically talk about today world building through characters, and like the way that they set this up and the way that they introduce things, there's a ton of exposition, but it doesn't feel laborsome because it's actually the exposition is character development. And so they're explaining what's going on in the world by explaining who these people are, and they're very interesting people. And so I feel like it kind of flies in the face of a lot of stuff that you see where, people are like, oh, avoid exposition at all costs or try to keep it to a minimum or whatever. They actually have some things that they do in here where people are delivering exposition, and they do it in such an interesting way. And the world is so weird that it really just is very, very well done. Plus, I just love Guillory's art. I mean, the way he draws hands and the way he kind of like over exaggerates and caricatures anatomy and things is really, really good in this. This is one of those artists who all of the people that he draws look different. Instead of everybody being like, oh yeah, there's so-and-so's male character face and there's so-and-so's female character face. Like it's more of like a Warner Brothers Hanna-Barbera style of character design where the characters have like very distinct silhouettes and very distinct facial features. And anyway, it is much more like reading like an animated cartoon than it is like reading like a traditional kind of big two comic. It's just super fun. So we get in and we start into this world, and I will just point out that my book is not stained. That's like part of the coloring that's going on, because everything in this world is based off of superpowers around food. And so this is kind of like a grease stained page here, where we're talking about kind of the introduction. So, and more grease stains here with some special thanks and some dedication. And we kind of start with I think one of Josh's favorite types of things, which is just moments and kind of these little things. And so we see this guy preparing some food. This is called prologue, and he nicks his finger, bleeds on the food, throws it in anyway. End prologue. So this is the beginning. Already we're kind of like introducing the world, and I'll just get some shots of. I just love the way that he draws hands, and so you get a really good kind of introduction to how he does that here.
I really dig that. I like that he blocks them too, which is the best way to cartoon hands. Yeah. But I also like those like nubbins. That are like, the balls of the knuckles are just like these. It's great.
Just
he's always having fun with it. Yeah.
So he does these types of pages quite a bit. The light is hitting this kind of weird. Where we have this introduction to a character, and so we meet Tony Chu. Tony Chu is almost always hungry, and he never eats. And here's why. Tony Chu is a civopathic. This means that he can take a bite of an apple and can get a feeling in his head about what tree it grew from, what pesticides were used on the crop, and when it was harvested. Or he can eat a burger, eat a hamburger, and flash into something entirely different. Strangely enough, the only food Tony Chu can eat and not get a psychic sensation from is beets. And so there's kind of these intro pages, and I'm going to show a couple of those because they happen a few times. But this is, we'll kind of skip past this part here. Well worth the read. It's a really interesting introduction. What we're seeing here is we're seeing them he has these special glasses that can see poultry. And we're seeing people kind of sneak poultry out, and you start to get the idea that the bird flu has caused the FDA to be one of the most powerful organizations on the planet. And that chicken and all poultry and all fowl is outlawed. You're no longer allowed to eat it. And so here's another little introduction, and I'll just zoom in on this so that we can both read it and kind of see that the art and the character acting, because it's so good. Then continue to stir the onions over medium heat, adding 2 teaspoons of brown sugar. Then scrape off the browned bits in the pan frequently until it has caramelized. Now we add the bay leaves and the chicken, or in this case, we would if the chicken wasn't illegal and if it was available. Instead, substitute 14-ounce can of poultry feed, chicken flavored naturally, and stir. And then we see progressively he gets angrier and angrier. And then he starts freaking out. Look, no matter how I disguise or spin this, the flavor, in the end, it's still going to taste like boiled butt compared to how it's supposed to. I'm supposed to stand here and pretend like this sad crap is actually tolerable when in fact it's barely freaking edible. There never was any bird flu. The government tells you there was, and they're lying. No disrespect for the people who died, but this is never about birds. The government has an agenda. The bird flu is a hoax, and it's at the heart of it. It's all BS. And every word the president has said is a lie. Screw him, screw the Senate, screw the Congress, and screw every liar in Washington for ratifying our constitutional amendment based on lies. And so it's just, I love that we have like this on-screen mental breakdown, which is technically all exposition.
Yeah.
This is all like setting the scene, except it's so funny in the way that it's drawn, and in just the absurdity of the premise that there is a constitutional amendment to outlaw poultry.
I also can you zoom in on that first frame and then the last frame on that page just to kind of highlight some of the humor there. I mean, look at that face. It's like harmless, like I'm a cooking TV show host, and then it just strains until it becomes that. Right. I love that. That's hilarious.
And you can slowly see the concern and the frustration grow until he's literally grabbing the camera and you can see his thumbprints on the lenses.
And I like that that device too of having it kind of just go to the color correction. Like the screen going off. I love that. Yeah,
it's great. So we'll kind of skip this part. They kind of bust this. They're about to bust this guy, and then Agent Savoy from the FDA shows up, and to me, I think the premise of having like the FDA become like MI6 or the CIA is just one of the best things ever. Because it's so funny that the Food and Drug Administration just has all these like secret agents now and everything. This guy, he speaks in this like, he says, on the contrary, my esteemed constables, he just speaks in like this highfalutin kind of thing. He uses words like erstwhile, things like that. And so anyway, so he says, don't go bust that guy. In fact, why don't you go in and have some chicken? And so they go into the establishment, they have some chicken, right? And so his partner, who's kind of a jerk, kind of a meathead, he's like really enjoying some fried chicken. He orders some soup and he takes a sip of it. And I'm going to have to zoom in on these panels here, but he takes a sip of it and we see just an explosion. And I love the layout of this page. I'm super curious on how long this took. Because I tried to find things that repeated, and the only ones that repeated are that panel from before where he cuts his finger. The cook that prepared this cut his finger and put it into dropped the blood in. But everything else, it seems fair. Now I'm starting to see. So I don't know how many there was repeating, but they're repeating a little bit, but not enough. It's like you have to look for them to really see the repeats. And one of my favorite things in inking, we got the fingerprint inks. You can kind of see his face, and then you just see all of these panels. And
there's like what appears to be some kind of murders.
Yeah. And so what's happening is he gets a taste, and you see that he starts to realize what's going on. And he tells his partner that there's a serial killer in the kitchen. And so they go into the kitchen, Dutch angle, and you see him like burst in, almost like these 4 panels, I love it when they do kind of the like storyboard style paneling. See it kick open. You see their reaction to this. I mean, just from here to here and from here to here, such a great reaction. The poses and the blocking are all the same, but the expressions that, as they kick in the door and yell police. Good foreshortening in the gun. He gets hit in the head with a cleaver. And then they kind of chase him outside. There's kind of a showdown between Chew and the serial killer. The guy's coming at him with a knife. He shoots him, and then he's like, "I'm gonna figure out the rest of where the rest of your victims are," and so he starts eating his face. And just some great chomp script, chomp, splulch. Just great sound effects there, onomatopoeia. So anyway, so then he goes through. I'm gonna skip ahead. He gets fired from the police force. Agent Savoy shows up, realizing that he's got this special ability, and he just basically says, "You work for us now. Welcome to the FDA, Agent Chew."
And the premise, I mean, there's a few things about this premise that in itself make the story so interesting to begin with. It's like, it's just a funny, it's a very humorous premise. I love it.
Right.
The idea of like a special agent who can, by eating things, kind of sense their origin
Right.
and then all the food related stuff. And then the fact that the FDA, yeah, that's hilarious.
So
the FDA is like the FBI.
Right. Just really incredible world building. And for some reason, the artist is always drawing people's fingerprints. And I love that that's just a thing that he does. That's like part of his style, is everybody has fingerprints, which kind of leads into the next part, where we have somebody coming and complaining. And so this guy kind of goes in and he goes to like put snot in this lady's burger since she complained. And he finds a finger. So then that gets reported. And then we have another one of these pages. So I'm gonna go through this again, because this is the same setup as before, but now he's like, his file has changed. It's almost like a little personnel file.
So really quickly, this would be like the second issue at this point, right?
Right. So this is basically, I think this is the first page of the second issue.
Got it. So they're already establishing a format for the floppies where it's like your first page, it's got like a brief like teaser, just like a crime drama. Right. And then the second is like, here's Tony, like here's introducing Detective Chew,
Yeah. And the chapter breaks have this really awesome knife and fork in a skull and a plate. And I'm pretty sure that these are the covers. So Agent Chew, here's Tony Chew. It's Tony Chew's first day as an agent with the Special Crimes Division of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world. And here's where he was hired. So the writing is phenomenal and the art is phenomenal. So
yeah, I'm so glad they went with an artist that, is more of an animation style. I'm glad they did,
Yeah, honestly, I don't think this comic would work in like a Marvel or DC style.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because you can't see it like that, but there's so much in the playful nature and the bend and stretch with what's going on and the expressions, that if you were to go with somebody who is, just drew big muscly guys and big busty girls, I think you'd really miss a lot of what makes this comic awesome.
Yeah.
So he goes through, and it's the same thing, except this time, instead of apples, it's an orange, and instead of a cow, it's a pig. And then we get a little bit different detail here, where this is his new job, and he works for a guy named Mike Appleby. And the other thing that I love is that all of the names are very close to food related things. Like Savoy is almost savory, and Applebee is almost Applebee's, and Chew is Chew. And so anyway, so he's handed this burger that he has to eat, and they have a big discussion about it. He's, this guy's kind of a jerk. It actually took a while. This is great. I'm going to get in on this too. So it took a while for this piece of evidence to get to him. And so it's like Ren and Stimpy style, like gross out at this point. So anyway, so Agent Savoy is about to eat it, and we'll kind of go through some stuff. He finally ends up eating it, and he flashes, and we get to meet Evan Pepper. And so this is in the middle of an issue, but a critical character to this case.
And again, the names.
Right.
The names
He's a
are all
health inspector for the state of New York with territories concentrated around Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He's been on the job for 13 years. He has an ex-wife who does not talk to him, alimony he cannot afford, and a 2-bedroom apartment in a dark slope, and a miniature dachshund named Mr. Buttersworth. So technically all exposition. And then we go through and we learn that, recently Evan Pepper made a strange and disturbing discovery. He made some dangerous people very angry as a result. And they go in, and it's the same format. So we have kind of title, and then we've got 2 full panels that go across, and then 2 split panels at the bottom. And in this one, he actually gets interrupted as his fingers coming across. And so what we come to realize is that this personnel file that is coming about is actually Agent Chew's hallucination or vision or whatever you would call that. And it gets interrupted by Applebee. So, and then we do this again. So, let's see, where do we want to go? Yeah, so I didn't want to do too much of just page by page, but it's really hard to miss this one kind of exchange. And so I'm gonna do this one exchange here, and then we'll go back to kind of the world building. So he goes to, and the little details like this are what make this really awesome. He goes to McBeefy's Burgers and such.
And
Come die with us. But they left a space where the N fell off. But like they are investigating a homicide. And so like the N is like hanging off down here. I just love that little detail.
Yeah. So good.
So anyway, so they have sausage rolls, they have meat pies, and they have egg. Those are the 3 things that they're doing anything. He says, I don't have to tell you a dang thing, pig. Listen, son. Go up here. Listen, son, you're not in any trouble. Just want to ask you a couple of questions regarding that finger. Oh, yeah? Well, what if I don't feel like answering? My dad's a lawyer, and he says all you FDA guys are a bunch of fascists. He says the only reason the chicken was outlawed so jerk-off FDA bullies like you can have an excuse to hassle people. And there's like, we keep cutting to like his coworkers that are like kind of enjoying, this guy teasing. And I know my right, cop. And unless I've been selling chicken, smuggling chicken, or eating chicken, you've got no cause to mess with me. Is that so? I
love it.
My dad was a lawyer.
Sorry, just the premise of like chicken, like a prohibition era thing.
Yeah, I mean it is
with chicken is really funny.
It is. They're talking about it as if it's like drying mushrooms or smuggling cocaine or
rum running back in the day. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, and then we
diner is amazing.
Yeah, and then we cut away to this woman eating a burger and him falling in love. And then just some of the best like writing. Here he says, can I get back to work now, cop? He said, sure. I just need to make a phone call. And then like just this guy just like rocking out with his loser phone in the back. And then here's his phone call. So this is the phone call that Agent Chu makes. This is Agent Chu. I have an exclusion request. Subject is named Kornblum, Daniel Kornblum. Subject is identified father as a vocal dissenter. Request strike team sent to residence and for elimination of an agitator. That's right. Better make all of the family just to be safe. Bullet to the head, just as fine. Or, take your time with them if you want to have some fun. What are you doing? And he's actually just talking to his partner. And so anyway, so then we get to see both sides of this conversation. And we see the one side of the conversation where he and his partner are messing with this guy, and the other side of the conversation where this guy is only hearing what he's saying and is totally starting to freak out. And just nonchalantly, his partner has eaten part of this dog as part of his investigation into finding Evan Pepper.
Does his partner have the same ability?
Yeah, there's only 3 registered Cybopaths, and the other one is a Serbian who works for the Russian government. So anyway, so I just thought that exchange was funny, and then he spills his guts, and this is worth reading when you guys buy this comic. I would just, this page is just hilarious.
I just love the character work too, because like it draws you in a lot because you have this kind of snot-nosed, like right. Sort of entitled teenager. I mean, the way he's illustrated him, you're right about the characters too. I love the fact that none of the templates are the same template.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, especially when you're working in like a very kind of cartoony style. It's like so important to have those articulated differences between characters.
Yeah, it really makes it work. And I mean, I think that's one of the most enjoyable things about this, other than it just being hilarious.
Yeah.
The art is really entertaining. And it adds to the hilarity. So let's see. So then they go to this sushi joint that's a front for a chicken smuggling ring. And the sushi is intentionally bad because they don't want anyone to eat there. So these Yakuza all show up to fight him. And then just incredible fight scene where Savoy jumps through the window with Sai, Raphael style, and like starts throwing like ninja stars and like and all of their neckties are acting like the bandana or the extra tied part of the eye coverings of the Ninja Turtles. They're all doing very similar things that they used to do in the old Eastman and Laird comics.
I also I just I love that character. His legs are just so funny, and I love the fact that he doesn't like squash and stretch to make his anatomy any different. So when he's like kicking, it's with these like legs that are insanely small for his body. It's hilarious. Right. It's just a great character design. But I like that he works with the anatomy that he kind of built these guys with.
Yeah.
That is very Ninja Turtle shout out. I love that.
Yeah, and it's funny because all of the characters are either extremely skinny or extremely large, and the large ones often have very tiny legs, just to exaggerate the torso even more. So big fight scene, and then we show up to this guy's office. And his office is just covered in frogs. And they never say anything about why his office is covered in frogs. Like, it's never pointed. And this frog has like pissed on the desk. And it's just a frog covered office. I
also love the guy who just showed up looks like Jules from or not Jules, the other character from Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, yeah.
Yeah.
he's got the suit and the sunglasses and the hair, the mustache.
Yeah. This is very enjoyable.
Okay, so we'll kind of a couple more pages here, and we'll kind of wrap this. So he starts talking to his partner who is in a coma, telling her that he met this girl, and then it cuts away to another one of these 12-panel pages. And so we see 3 days earlier, this businessman grabs a newspaper, waits for the bus, begins reading the newspaper, flips a couple pages, and then from here to here, I love this. His eyes just get really wide and his eyebrows go up. Actually, his eyebrows are already up. The only change is that his eyes get really wide. And you see that he's reading Food and Leisure. And then he gets sick to his stomach, runs to the garbage can and throws up. And everyone else in the city has just finished reading the newspaper and vomits.
And then
we get this woman who's just whistling to herself as everyone is throwing up around her.
Just the way, look at the way he drew those ankles.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just so fun. His style of cartooning, it's just he's having so much fun with the shapes,
yeah.
You know.
And I love that she is curvy, but not like made out of bubbles, like another, like every Marvel or DC comic character.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just really entertaining. And there seems to be like an abundance of trash cans. Whenever I'm in a city this size, I can never find a trash can. But there's all kinds of trash cans all over the place. And then we have our little introductional personal file here again. Meet Amelia Mintz. Amelia Mintz is paid to eat and then write about what she's eaten. Here's why. Amelia is a Sabo scrivener. That means that she can write about food so accurately and so vividly and with such precision that people get the actual sensation of taste when reading about the meals that she writes about. Lately, Amelia has grown supremely bored with her job and the culinary world in general. The last 2 months, she has only written about restaurants that get a D rating or worse from the New York Department of Health.
Now we have our explanation.
Right. And so her superpower is that she's an incredibly good writer about food. So good, in fact, that people experience, the same thing. And so anyway, it continues along these lines. It's a phenomenal comic. The art, the color, the lettering, the writing, it's all hilarious and all worth a read. But I really just wanted to kind of point out the world building that happens along with kind of the character development, because the personnel files, the little setup, the little scene, and then personnel files, and then story is such an ingenious thing. And it's not like it hasn't been done before, but typically when it's done, it tends to be pretty boring. I mean, I even remember, I just love him getting vomited on here and enjoying it. It's great. But typically when it happens, I end up, even if I haven't read the issue before, I remember as a kid, I would like skip those pages. They were just so boring, but like, it's so well done here. And the pacing and everything, there's obviously some templated ways that they're doing, the kind of like scenery and stuff, and the different pacing of things. But I love this scene in Serbia here. We've got like a llama that's been shot in the head. It's like this carcass. There's this chicken eating a hand, all these empty beer bottles, a brush, some headphones. I love random scenes like this.
Great.
This is in some sort of spatial observatory. So anyway, well worth the read. I'm just going to kind of flip through some of the pages. I don't want to spoil anything or anything like that, but this is the first volume of an 8-year run that spans 60 issues. And the link in the description will actually take you to where you can buy it on paper, but I think it's available for free on Comixology, at least the first volume. So
Nice.
Yeah. Do you have want to do an adjustment?
Yeah. So it's time to balance the books. Let me pull this out, and here we go. Boom. Oh wait, there we go. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So my recommendation is actually a book that I just found really fascinating called, hold on, let me pull it up. One Nation Under God, How Corporate America Invented Christian America. And it's a really interesting book on Audible that basically documents like how some of the myths of the founding fathers and the religious preferences and stuff like that got distorted, and basically ties into how some leaders united in opposition to FDR's New Deal started inventing this fake history that started getting taught in schools and kind of led to a lot of political and weird ideological and historical inaccuracies in people's stuff. So it's a pretty good book. I recommend it. And a way to so the Indie Review Show is brought to you by Audible, so you can get a free audiobook like this book or another book, and support the show by going to audibletrial.com/IRS. Also, if you like this book or any other books we're recommending, you can go to irsagency.com. And in fact, an easy way to support the show is to click one of the links on irsagency.com. So say like the link in the show notes for this episode. There's a whole bunch of links like that. And before you purchase anything on Amazon, if you click those links on irsagency.com, we'll get a kickback and it doesn't raise the price for you. So yeah. And let me get back. All right. So Corey, I was impressed. I think it's fun. I think I'll say overall not like blown away by the paneling, you know? That would be one thing in the comic that I wasn't like super impressed by, but I think in a weird way, because the art style is so fun and creative, if you had too much play going on with the paneling, it might be counterintuitive to the actual thing. Oh, you're on mute.
I agree. If you go nuts on everything, I think sometimes it can be really distracting. And I mean, the art is out there, and so having very structured and almost boring panels in a repetitive way, where you're teaching the reader like, this is what we're doing, and this is the part of the story in this issue that we're in.
Yeah.
It kind of allows you to go a little bit crazier on perspective and anatomy and a lot of those things.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good example. It's funny. I was just reading a Dave Pilkey book to my kid for his book time tonight before we did our review. And it has a similar sense of play as like Dogman or like Captain Underpants. Like, there is something to be said for, as a writer or an artist, especially when you're doing humor, there is something to be said for like going all in on a premise and just having fun with it and exploring it. So like setting arbitrary guidelines for yourself, like, okay, this is going to be food related. It's food crimes. It's going to be the FDA as the agency. It's a detective comic, but it has food. And like even a premise like, okay, we're going to do establishing, rundowns of different people's characters, like exposition, but we're going to do it like a heist movie. And every character's name is going to be food related. Like it, just little things like that, like leaning into them. And I think why it works so well from what I gather is like the writer's doing that, but then the artist is completely leaning into every panel. And so he's like, oh, I can do funny things in my panels. All right, I'm going to have frogs all over this office. Right. Or I'm going to have like, like not just the, like, I'm guessing the dead llama might have been part of the plot, but I'm guessing the headphones might not. right? Like
Right.
there's just little things he's throwing in because he's like, I don't know, that would be funny and kind of fun to draw. And I think that's what, to me, like appeals to me about this comic is like, you look at it and you can tell the people doing it are having fun.
Right.
And that translates really well. And I think, like, again, just by just leaning into it, like they're not being apologetic, they're kind of creating their own world and just sort of leaning into the absurdity of it. And I think, super appealing and interesting. I can see why it's so popular. And honestly, like we review a lot of like really artsy books on here, and or like heavy books, you know, that deal with like heavy topics and stuff. And there's something to be said for like a light read that's just super funny and fun.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I mean, and it is, this is escapist fiction at its best. I mean, it's really just an interesting world that they built, and it's silly, but it takes itself seriously. And so like, it's not, there's some comics and movies and games that are silly for the sake of silly. And you it kind of takes you out of it a little bit, or, you know, it can be kind of funny, but it's more like sketch comedy. But this is like, I've heard interviews from the writer who he went out of his way to specifically say, no, these are the rules of this universe and they never break them. And so that no one has any powers, you know, about prophecy, and no one has any powers that don't involve food somehow. And so there's like, he set up his own like magic system, basically, for lack of a better term, and sticks to it. And it makes it very entertaining. One of my favorite characters, by the way, happens much later in the book, but I was just listening to a podcast earlier today by the artist, and he is still 10 years later getting commissions for this character. It's Secret Agent Pollo. It is a luchador cyborg rooster. So it's like this like part rooster, part robot luchador fighting rooster, like, you know, like a cockfighting guy, but he's a rooster, and it's just, and he's little. He's like everybody else is, you know, these giant torsos or these long skinny, and then you get this tiny little like robot chicken that just like goes nuts, and he's very, you know, he's got the kind of braggadocio and machismo of like you know, south of the border luchador wrestler. So
yeah, and I like that about this book. I also like that about the art, in the sense of like he'll create like this wacky template for a character where their torso is way too large, and yet like he moves them like they would move with those really large torsos, which is how like Pixar does it, how like a lot of really strong animation firms do it. It's like you don't like you don't make the wacky body and then have it like change its own laws of physics, right? Unless you're setting up and establishing like a fire hose world, you know. And then in that case, like, you know, just make sure that's consistent. Like if you know, if Popeye's like arms are gonna wobble, then maybe Olive Oil's legs need to wobble and have funny little bobbing knees on them, you know. I think that is what makes this compelling and interesting, is like they take the world seriously, but they have as much fun in like the establishing laws. It's like they almost built a system where it has to be funny. And I think that's great too. So I just, I'm really stunned by it. It's really unique. And I love stories like that. And I want to see more comics like that are less like run of the mill and more like out of the box fun.
I also really love the angular nature of the anatomy, because I feel like everybody shoots for like realism, or they all shoot for like, you know, the you know, like the Greek god kind of template that all of the superheroes are based on or whatever. But there's a couple like Dead at 17 and Chew and stuff like that where they just say like, screw it, we're gonna do like really angular stuff and really round things, and everybody is built on like more like shapes rather than like you know that it's this guy because he's blonde, and it's this guy because he's got dark hair. It's this guy because he wears a big symbol on his chest. Otherwise, he'd be completely indistinguishable from everybody else. It's like you could see, Agent Chu or Agent Savoy in any situation wearing any clothing, and it would look like them because they have very distinctive features and very distinctive shapes and silhouettes. So like the character design are really awesome too. And I've seen guys like that. Like I used to work with a guy who was like 90% torso,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
his
totally.
little tiny little spindly legs. And I love that there are comics out there that represent like all of humanity and all of its weirdness, and like very few of us look like, people look in the comics. And
Yeah.
that's fine, right? But then also like, there are some people that just have a really bizarre looking neck,
Yeah.
or a really oddly short torso, or really long forearms, and like there's kind of the idea of like, oh, this is the ideal, and you memorize it's this many heads high and this many whatever, but exaggerating that but sticking consistent with it is really funny.
I love it.
Jim says, I've had a dream about interdimensional chickens taking over the earth, and Pollo might just be in my lane as a Mexican. So.
Yeah, it's probably a comic for you, man. It looks like something I think most people would enjoy picking up. I don't think this would be a comic that someone would regret reading. I don't think it's going to be a comic that like you're going to leave and like have some profound realization about the world or anything. But I do think
there are some really interesting corollaries, but I've actually noticed this several times. It's just because we're coming out of this lockdown pandemic.
Yeah.
But I mean, this happened like 8 or 9 years before COVID hit at all.
It was prophetic.
And there's all the conspiracy theorists that are saying that it's a government hoax, and there's all, or whatever, that it's like, oh, it's this like power grab. And a lot of the arguments that a lot of the people that are like losing it are saying, have kind of come up. And you see that in The Expanse too, which is a book series that came out where it's got, there's these kind of different things. Anyway, you go through different stories. It's funny how often fiction just is like, let's put people in this ridiculous situation.
Yeah.
And then if that situation happens, people act in a way that you would expect them to act. So yeah, you've got TV personalities that are losing it, freaking out, claiming that there's some, deep state, whatever. And then you've got other people like going off and do that. And it's just funny to see, like there's not like a Harvard professor in this comic arguing about it. It's like the loser stoner kid who's like doing snot rockets in people's burgers at the fast food joint that's saying that there's this, and it's like, it's just funny to see the correlation between something so ridiculous, but yet the humanity is in it, and the realism isn't in the world building. The realism is in the personification of how people react in different situations.
Dude, and that is so true for both the art style and the writing style of this, is that it takes a person who actually observes people to draw like that. Like you really have to, like you were just describing with like some people have weird necks. Right. You have to actually be looking to draw in that kind of style. And then it's a lot of fun because you like memorize like, wow, that person had a crazy neck. Like, and maybe you sketch it in your sketchbook, and then like later on you remember how to draw this like crazy character. But that style doesn't work very effectively if you're exaggerating things where you're just like, oh, I've never seen a person that looks like that. But when you see the guy who's barrel chested with those tiny little legs, it's like, you've seen that guy. Like, I mean, if you saw a guy with those actual proportions, you'd freak out, but it's so built on reality. It's an exaggeration built on reality. And I think the same with the plot. Like you wouldn't buy into the premise if it didn't pull from like little things from life. And I think in a weird way, it might be like more reliant on that, like because if you aren't pulling from like kind of truth in that sense, like and exaggerating it, then like, I don't think anybody would be on board for the plot, But what a fun premise, and just I can't imagine the pitch meeting for that. And I do love that there are publishers like Image out there who will hear a pitch like that and be like, "Yep, we're going to do that."
Yep.
I think I just think it's great. It's fun.
Yeah. anyway, it's fun. It's a fun one. You know, it's got some weak points. I think the coloring of some of the typography, the lettering, it is way more saturated than the book itself, so it feels other than. And like we kind of mentioned the panels, but it's really strong in the art and the writing, and it's well worth it. So highly recommended. And if anybody's interested in it, you can go to irsagency.com. There's a link there. You can see all the past shows that we've done and see all the stuff that we've recommended in the past. And once we get our act together here and both of us get back on the same page, I think we've both been really busy. We'll have upcoming episodes again of what's going on. But we go live every Monday night.
Yep.
9 p.m. Pacific, and we'll continue.
And next week, this isn't up on the site yet, but next week I'll be reviewing David Chelsea in Love by a friend of mine, David Chelsea. So
yeah, that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that one. He's the perspective for comic artists. Yeah,
this is like his comic that he kind of started with, and it's like in the industry and stuff, and it's one of the reasons I was really stoked about meeting David Chelsea. I actually like his perspective books, but that one will be good to go through, although it's a little saucy. Just warning you guys.
That's awesome. So Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Amazon.com. Check out 2 Stories on Amazon. Don't just randomly go to Amazon because you probably won't. But yeah, 2 Stories by Joshua Kemble. That's Kemble, and it can basically be for like under $5. I think it's like $3 right now for 120 something page graphic novels. So if I were you guys, that's where I would pick it up. If not, let's say you're avoiding Amazon or anything like that, you can basically get it on any online book retailer, or ask your local independent bookstore or comic book store to order it through Ingram. And yeah.
Awesome.
And where
you can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. You go to CoreyKerr.com/online or click on what's new. And every time I say that, Josh gets a song stuck in his head. Then you can see kind of what I'm up to, what I'm doing. Right now, I've been posting stuff to Instagram. I am getting close, within a couple weeks, I think, of finishing up this music video. And so that will be, you'll see like pieces of that as I'm kind of animating those. We also have an after party that we're going to be doing on my channel. So you can just search my name on YouTube there, or click on the link that's on CoreyKerr.com. And we'll be going live here in a few minutes. If you're watching this live, if you're not watching this live, you can still go to my channel and it'll probably be up and you can go find it. So,
all right, let's go party.
All right.